My name is Kelly Morgan, and for most of my adult life, I believed that loyalty, hard work, and sacrifice would eventually be rewarded. That if you gave everything to your family, they'd always have your back. I believed that, until the Friday afternoon I found out my parents had secretly made my younger brother CEO of the company I practically built from scratch. But let's rewind. Before the betrayal, before the fallout, before the silence between us turned into a war, I was proud, fiercely proud, of what we'd created, of what I had created. I was 29 when I took over operations at Morgan & Company. Design Build, our family-owned construction and renovation business. My parents, George and Ellen Morgan, had founded it together out of a 2-car garage when I was still in middle school. Back then, it was just small kitchen remodels and patio jobs. But I watched my dad carry drywall with blisters on his hands, and my mom chased down payments from clients while managing invoices in an old Excel file that crashed every time you sneezed. By the time I graduated with my degree in architecture and business, they were still stuck in the old ways. No project management system, no CRM. Contracts were still printed and signed with pen. It was charming, but it wasn't scalable. So I came home and went to work. Not for a paycheck, but because I believed in their dream. I made it mine. Within 2 years, I'd implemented streamlined workflows, negotiated contracts that tripled our revenue, and brought in clients with names my dad used to read about in trade magazines. By 33, I was managing all major accounts, overseeing staff and running the entire company, on paper and in practice. And then there was Landon, my younger brother by 3 years. Smart? Yes. Driven? When he wanted to be. But while I was in the office at 7 a.m., Landon was still finding himself. He traveled, tried tech startups, failed twice, and spent a year in Thailand meditating and redefining his professional identity. I didn't resent that. Not at first. We were just different people. But things started shifting 2 years ago when Landon returned home and, suddenly, wanted in on the family business. My parents welcomed him back with open arms. My dad gave him an executive strategy consultant title. He sat in on meetings but didn't take notes, offered visionary insight but couldn't explain a spreadsheet. Meanwhile, I stayed late to fix his mistakes, rebuild broken client trust, and keep the machine moving. Still, I told myself, this is family. Be patient. I was loyal. To a fault. Until that Friday. We had just wrapped the final design presentation for Hawthorne Properties, our biggest client to date. A $5 million contract was in the pipeline, and they were ready to move forward. After the meeting, I went into the back office to print some documents and found an envelope sitting on my chair. It wasn't addressed. Just my name written in my dad's familiar handwriting. Inside was a copy of a resolution. Landon Morgan appointed CEO of Morgan & Company, effective immediately. No discussion. No explanation. No conversation. I stared at it for what felt like an hour. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there with this icy, hollow feeling rising through my chest. My hands went numb. I reread the paper, convinced it had to be a draft, a mistake, a joke. But it wasn't. My name appeared nowhere. I walked out of the office, past our design board, past my frame certifications, and into the conference room, where Landon was joking with one of our junior architects like it was just another day. My parents? Nowhere to be found. So I made a decision right then. If they wanted Landon to run the company, he could. That night, I logged in from home, backed up my personal files, deleted every system shortcut and internal process guide I'd built over the years from the shared drive. Files only I had access to. I didn't destroy anything. I just removed my contribution. What remained was theirs to manage. Or not. The following Monday, I didn't show up for work. And I didn't answer my phone when my dad called 5 days later, his voice tight with panic. Kelly, we need to talk. Hawthorne's pulling out. They said you're not on the project anymore and they're not comfortable moving forward. I texted him back one sentence. Ask your golden boy. He's in charge now, right? What followed would change the future of our family forever. When I sent that text, ask your golden boy. He's in charge now, right? I didn't expect a reply, and for the next 48 hours, I didn't get one. The silence was deafening. It felt like the kind that comes not from confusion, but from scrambling. I imagined my father pacing his office, Landon fumbling through contracts he never read, my mother pretending nothing was wrong while offering someone tea. I didn't feel vindicated. Not really. Mostly I felt tired. It had been exactly 8 days since I'd walked out of Morgan and Company, and in that time I had done something I hadn't done in over a decade. Nothing. No early meetings, no project calls, no client emails. Just long walks, uninterrupted meals, and staring at my phone waiting for a call that never came. Until now. On Wednesday morning, my mother's name lit up my screen. "Sweetheart," she said immediately, her voice syrupy. "You've made your point. We really need to talk about this professionally. Can you come to dinner Sunday? Just the four of us." I paused. Dinner. Like this was just a minor disagreement over Thanksgiving plans and not a betrayal that upended my career. But I agreed, because I needed to look them in the eyes and see if they even understood what they'd done. Sunday came, and I pulled into my parents' driveway at exactly 6 p.m. The porch light was on, and inside I could already hear my dad's booming laugh and the clinking of wine glasses. I stood at the front door for a few seconds longer than I needed to, steadying my breath. Landon opened the door. "Hey, Kel," he said like nothing had happened. Like we weren't on opposite sides of a war no one acknowledged yet. I walked past him without responding. The dining table was already set. Mom was in her usual apron, pulling something out of the oven. Dad sat at the head of the table, flipping through a leather-bound notebook. His strategy notes, I assumed. I sat down without a word. "So," my dad said after some obligatory small talk, "let's talk about how we move forward. We've had a rough couple of days with Hawthorne, but I think we can salvage it. Landon's putting together a revised proposal and—" I held up my hand. "I'm not here to fix things," I said calmly. "I'm here to ask a simple question. Why?" He blinked. "Why what?" "Why did you name Landon CEO behind my back?" I asked, staring directly at him. No discussion. No notice. After everything I've done for the company. The room fell silent. My mother busied herself pouring wine, avoiding eye contact. My father sighed and leaned back in his chair. "Kelly, you've always been the backbone of the business. No one denies that. But you're operational. Landon is a visionary. He has ideas. Big ideas." I almost laughed. "Ideas? You mean like launching a social media campaign with no budget or pushing for a $200,000 office remodel mid-Q4? "He's learning," Mom chimed in. "And he's good with people. He connects with the younger team members." "So you gave him the company?" I asked. "You made the one person who doesn't understand contracts, vendor negotiations, or licensing the CEO?" "You were burning out," Dad said, as if that justified it. "You never took vacations. You were always working late. We thought maybe it was time to give you some space. Let you breathe." "You thought stabbing me in the back would help me breathe?" I snapped, my voice rising. "You didn't relieve me. You replaced me." Landon finally spoke. "It wasn't like that, Kel. I didn't ask for this. Dad came to me and said you needed a break and that I could help take things off your plate." I turned to him. "And you said yes. You took the title, the office, the authority, and didn't think to ask why your sister, the one who's built that company, was suddenly taking a break without knowing it?" He looked down at his plate. Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled back. "You didn't just hurt me," I said quietly. "You jeopardized everything I built. Our systems, our client trust, our growth. Hawthorne wasn't just a big contract. It was our entry into the luxury build market. You let them walk away." Dad looked visibly uncomfortable now. "They'll come back." "They won't," I replied. "They've already signed with Brenner Group." I checked my words landed like a slap. That's when my dad finally dropped the bravado. "What do you want, Kelly?" he asked, the tension in his voice barely controlled. "We're in a crisis. Do you want to see us fail?" "I want to be respected," I said. "I want to be valued. And clearly that's not possible with Landon as CEO and me working in the shadows." He didn't respond. No one did. So I stood. "Enjoy your dinner," I said, reaching for my coat. "And good luck with your visionary." As I stepped outside into the cold evening air, I realized this wasn't just about a title. It was about finally standing up for my worth, even if that meant watching everything I helped build fall apart without me. The storm was only beginning. But for once, I wasn't afraid of the fallout. You'd be surprised how loud silence can be. It's not just the absence of sound. It's the echo of everything that's not being said. It was in every text that didn't arrive, every call I didn't make, every email I didn't answer. After that Sunday dinner, I shut it all off. No contact with Morgan and Company. I muted the group chats, turned off work notifications, and let my personal phone sit untouched on the counter for hours at a time. For once, I wasn't racing to respond to someone else's urgency. The strange part? No one came after me. No calls from my dad. No tearful apology from my mother. No surprise visit from Landon. Just silence. For a few days, I didn't know what to do with it. I kept waking at 5:30 a.m. on autopilot, only to realize I didn't have to be anywhere. I'd make coffee, check my inbox, remember there was nothing to check, and sit in the stillness, unsure what the next step should be. By Thursday morning, the unease had shifted into something closer to clarity. I had built Morgan and Company's client network from the ground up, designed systems that saved the company thousands every quarter, and led every major project for the last 6 years. But I'd never documented any of it in detail, because I never planned to leave. My knowledge lived in my head. My relationships were personal. My strategy wasn't written in a playbook. And now, they had the title. I had the leverage. I decided it was time to reclaim my narrative, so I began organizing a portfolio, not to take anything from the company, but to protect what I had contributed. I documented every major client I had brought in, every project I had managed, every system I had created or improved. I contacted Sienna Jacobs, a former colleague turned executive recruiter, and scheduled a lunch. "You have no idea how in demand someone with your background is," she said after scanning my resume. "You're what they call a unicorn. Technical skills, leadership experience, proven results. Firms would kill to bring you in." I laughed bitterly. That's funny. My own family didn't seem to think so. Sienna didn't sugarcoat it. "They probably underestimated you because they think they already know you. That's the curse of family. Familiarity breeds blindness." That line stuck with me. Familiarity breeds blindness. It explained so much. On Friday, things finally started to unravel. It began with a voicemail from Clint Reynolds, one of our top project managers. His voice was tight, like he was trying to sound calm but failing. "Hey, Kelly. Sorry to bother you. Listen, do you happen to remember where you stored the spec documents for the Baxter Hills project? Landon says he can't find them anywhere, and the client's asking for confirmation by 4 p.m. today. No one knows how to respond." I didn't reply. An hour later, another voicemail, this time from Karen, our head accountant. "Hi, Kelly. I know you're away, but we've run into a problem with the budget tracking system. It's not syncing with the new estimates, and Landon told me to call you. He said you'd probably know what to do. Please call me when you can. It's time sensitive." By the afternoon, the silence had broken completely. 6 missed calls, 3 emails, 2 LinkedIn messages. They needed me. But here's the thing. Needing someone isn't the same as valuing them. They didn't value me enough to involve me in a major leadership decision. They didn't value me enough to warn me before pulling the rug out from under me. But now that things were breaking, suddenly I was indispensable again. Number. That evening, I went for a walk through a nearby park, letting the cold wind sting my cheeks. I passed a group of kids playing on a jungle gym, two dogs chasing each other in the grass, and a man sitting on a bench sipping hot tea out of a thermos. Life kept moving. Even when yours falls apart, the world doesn't stop. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel behind. I wasn't racing. I wasn't carrying anyone else's weight. I was just existing. And that was enough. When I got home, I poured a glass of wine, lit a candle, and sat on my balcony watching the sunset. Somewhere in the distance, I heard a siren, then silence again. This time, it didn't feel heavy. It felt peaceful. Then my phone lit up again. Dad. No voicemail. Just a text. Call me. It's urgent. I stared at it for a long time before responding. What's wrong? The reply came instantly. We lost the Wexler contract. $2.3 million. They said they don't trust Landon's leadership. A pause. Then another message. Please come back. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. They were starting to learn the cost of silence. The Wexler account was the second major client to walk in less than 2 weeks. And judging by the urgency in my father's messages, they weren't going quietly. Apparently, the Wexler project team had emailed 5 times about missed deadlines and confusing directives. When no one responded professionally, they escalated to the CEO, Landon, who told them to chill out and trust the process. They didn't. They pulled out. $2.3 million in projected revenue, gone. And suddenly the title of CEO didn't feel so shiny anymore. By Monday morning, I had a dozen missed calls from my father. I didn't answer a single one. I wasn't being petty. I was being intentional. For years, I jumped the moment they needed something. I put out fires I didn't start, fixed mistakes I didn't make, and smoothed over contracts I wasn't even allowed to sign. But this wasn't my fire to extinguish. Let them sweat. Let him lead. That evening, I got a knock at my door. Not a text. Not a call. A knock. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a split second, I considered not answering. But curiosity got the better of me. It was my mother. She stood there holding a Tupperware of her famous baked ziti like this was any other visit, and not a peace offering wrapped in marinara sauce. Hi, sweetheart, she said softly, stepping back like she wasn't sure if I'd slam the door in her face. I didn't. I stepped aside and let her in. The apartment smelled like lavender and clean laundry, the way I liked it. I hadn't cooked in days, mostly just ate leftovers and things that didn't require thought. But somehow the scent of her food triggered memories I didn't expect. Of birthdays, late-night study sessions, family dinners after long work days. She set the dish on the counter. Your father's struggling, she said gently. Landon is in over his head. We didn't know how much you did until you weren't there to do it. I leaned against the kitchen island. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No, she admitted. It's just the truth. I crossed my arms. So now that everything's falling apart, I'm useful again? She flinched as if the words had stung. We made a mistake. I stayed silent. She continued. Your father thought Landon needed a win. After all his failures, after bouncing around, we thought maybe this would help him grow up. So you handed him my life's work? I said, the anger rising again. You gave him everything I'd earned because you wanted to fix him? It wasn't meant to hurt you, she said quickly. We thought you'd always be there. You were the constant, the one we could rely on. And you exploited that. My mother's shoulders sagged. I don't know how to fix this, Kelly. But we want to. Please come back. I shook my head slowly. I'm not coming back to the same position, the same hierarchy, the same expectations. You made it clear who you value and who you don't. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Then what would make it right? The question hung in the air, and for the first time, I allowed myself to say what I hadn't dared even admit out loud. Control, respect, ownership. Her eyes widened. You want to be CEO? No, I said firmly. I want equity, real power, decision-making authority, and I want Landon out of the driver's seat. That would destroy your father, she whispered. No, I replied. The decision he made is what's destroying him. I'm offering him a way out. She looked at me for a long time before nodding slowly. I'll talk to him. I'm not negotiating, I added. I'm not coming back just to save what's left. If I return, it's on my terms. That night, I emailed my lawyer friend Jasmine Patel and asked her to review the company's bylaws, ownership structure, and the CEO appointment resolution. If they wanted to talk, I was going to be ready. Because I wasn't just reclaiming my position, I was redefining my role entirely. The next day, I got an email from an address I hadn't seen in a while. Westmore Capital Group. One of their managing directors had worked with me on a commercial project 2 years ago. They were looking for a director of strategic operations, 6-figure salary, signing bonus, relocation assistance, and total creative control. Funny how your value skyrockets the moment you stop begging people to recognize it. I didn't say yes, but I didn't delete it either. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from my father. We'd like to meet. No assumptions, no pressure. Just a conversation. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. at the Riverstone Club. It was happening. I was done waiting for them to see me. Now, they were coming to me. And this time, I wasn't showing up as the daughter. I was showing up as the one who had built the empire they were now struggling to hold on to. I arrived at the Riverstone Club 5 minutes early. I wore a navy pantsuit, not the same one I used to wear to Morgan and Company strategy meetings, but a new one. A symbol. A statement. I wasn't coming back to reclaim what I lost. I was here to renegotiate what I was worth. The restaurant was quiet. White tablecloths, muted jazz playing in the background. A place you choose when you're trying to look composed while everything is falling apart. My parents were already seated at a corner table, my father stiff and unreadable, my mother giving me a hopeful but anxious smile. Landon was there too, which surprised me, but not enough to throw me off. Kelly, my dad said with a nod as I approached. No hugs, no warm greetings, just business. I sat down slowly, keeping my expression neutral. Let's get to it. He cleared his throat. First, I want to say, we underestimated your contribution. That's on me. I thought I was making a decision for the long-term health of the company, but I ignored the fact that you were the company's health. I waited. I also assumed you'd never leave, he admitted, his voice quieter now. That you'd push through, keep the ship sailing, and I took advantage of that. For that, I'm sorry. A long pause. It wasn't a full apology, but it was more than I expected. My mother jumped in. We've been discussing options, ways to make this right, but we want to hear from you first. I looked at all three of them, letting the silence stretch. Landon wouldn't meet my eyes. Then I spoke. I'm not coming back to be an employee. I'm not coming back to fix mistakes that someone else made while still being expected to defer to him. I turned to Landon. You wanted to be CEO. You took the title. You accepted the responsibility. And now, you're bleeding clients and calling me for help. He bristled. I didn't ask for this to go the way it did. I just thought... You thought what? I interrupted. That you could skip the years of grinding work and step into the spotlight because Dad handed it to you? That you could manage a multi-million-dollar business without knowing how to read a profit and loss statement? His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He knew I was right. I took a breath and leaned forward. Here are my terms, I said, placing a typed sheet in front of my father. 35% ownership, executive voting rights, co-CEO structure. Landon handles vision and client-facing work. I handle operations and strategic execution. All major decisions require both signatures. His eyes narrowed. That's a lot. It's what I'm worth. He scanned the paper. This would give you equal control. Exactly, I said. Not more. Not less. Equal. My mother looked between us. What about the staff? The clients? Won't they be confused by the shift in leadership again? I smiled slightly. They're already confused. Right now, clients don't trust the company because the leadership is unstable. You bring me back with clarity and authority, and you don't just stop the bleeding. You rebuild trust. My dad exhaled sharply. And if we say no? I walk, I said. Permanently. I'll go to Westmore Capital. They've already offered me a director role, and they're more than willing to let me bring clients with me, including Anderson and Wexler. My father looked genuinely rattled now. You'd really do that? I'd rather build something from scratch again than continue propping up something that devalues me. Landon finally spoke. What if I step down as CEO? I blinked. He shrugged. Let's be honest, Kelly. I'm in over my head. I thought I could handle it, but I've been treading water since day one. The pressure, the decisions, it's not what I thought it would be. His voice cracked slightly. I don't want to be the reason we lose everything Dad and Mom built. If sharing control with you fixes this, then I'm in. That was the most mature thing I'd ever heard my brother say. My father looked down at the paper again, then up at me. I'll have Harold draft an agreement, he said quietly. I nodded. Good. I want it signed and filed before I step foot back in that office. And your title? He asked. Chief Operating Officer, I replied. But functionally, I'll be calling the shots right next to Landon. There was nothing else to say. We shook hands, not as father and daughter, but as business partners. The official papers were signed 10 days later. 35% equity, shared executive control, a legally binding agreement that ensured no major decision at Morgan & Company could be made without my approval. I didn't return to the company as someone who needed a job. I returned as a woman who had proven her worth by walking away and had the courage to set the terms of her return. For the first time in years, I wasn't operating from exhaustion, guilt, or misplaced loyalty. I was walking back into that building on my own terms, and it felt damn good. The staff's reaction was cautious at first. I couldn't blame them. Rumors had flown during my absence. Some thought I was fired. Others said I'd quit in protest. The truth was murkier, and they could see the shift in me when I walked into the Monday meeting wearing confidence like armor. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I'm not here to undo the past few weeks, I told them. What's done is done, but I am here to rebuild what we lost and take us somewhere better. There was a pause. Then Clint, one of the senior project managers, stood and said, We missed you, Kelly. The room exhaled. So did I. Landon, to his credit, didn't shrink from the transition. He kept his role as co-CEO, but focused on outreach, branding, and creative vision. Things he actually enjoyed. And he got better. He listened. He stopped trying to act like a boss and started acting like a teammate. We weren't best friends, but we were finally aligned. My father? He struggled. Not with my leadership, but with his ego. Watching his daughter command board meetings, renegotiate vendor contracts, and win back the Anderson account was a hard pill to swallow. The same daughter he once told to stay in her lane was now redefining the highway. But eventually, even he came around. 3 weeks after I returned, he stopped by my office. No tie, just khakis and a weathered company polo. I watched the way you handled the Wexler damage control, he said, nodding toward the glass wall of my office. You didn't just clean it up, you salvaged the relationship. Because I knew how they thought, I said simply. I've been building that trust for years. He nodded again, then looked down. I should have seen it sooner. I didn't say, you should have. He already knew. Instead, I said, you see it now. That's what matters. That night, I stayed late. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I was redesigning our client onboarding strategy and couldn't stop scribbling ideas. At 7:45 p.m., the office lights clicked off one by one as the last of the staff left for the evening. I stood by the window, looking out over the city. Everything looked different now. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming what was mine. and making it better. And I wasn't just building a company. I was building a life where I no longer had to prove my worth. A life where I was valued, seen, and respected. 2 months later, Morgan & Company secured its biggest contract yet, a $7.2 million commercial development downtown. The client had heard about our leadership transformation and told me directly, "We want to work with whoever's responsible for saving your company from collapse." Funny how things come full circle. And as I walked out of that meeting, contract in hand, I got a text from my mom. "Sunday dinner? Just us. No business talk. I promise." I smiled. Maybe, just maybe, we were healing. That evening, as I sat on my balcony, sipping wine and watching the city skyline flicker to life, I reflected on everything that had happened. The betrayal, the silence, the walkout, the reckoning, the rise, the rebirth. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Loyalty means nothing without respect. Family means little without truth. And silence doesn't make you weak. Sometimes it makes you powerful.